After the waitress urged, "Stop, don't sign," an incredible life-changing secret was revealed. Charlie sat in the corner booth of the local diner, rain tapping against the glass like an urgent message from the universe. He stared at the life-altering loan agreement before him, its clauses twisted and tangled. He could feel the weight of his family's future resting on his tired shoulders. A devoted father, he carried the burden of mounting bills, and the thought of signing this contract sent chills down his spine. What if this was the step that led him into a pit of financial despair, a grave from which he could never escape? Mia, the effervescent waitress with a smile that could cut through the grayness outside, noticed the storm brewing in Charlie's eyes. She ambled over, her apron still speckled with flour from the morning rush. "Stop, don't sign that," she urged, her voice laced with urgency. "You can't see it, but those clauses? They'll get you. I've seen it before." Her words cut through Charlie's desperate thoughts. He wasn't just another customer to her. His struggles echoed her own past. They began to connect, sharing stories of resilience and hope. Mia spoke fondly of her father, a veteran who wore his scars with pride. "He taught me that hard work and community spirit could overcome anything," she said, her eyes sparkling with earnestness. In that cramped diner booth, a spark ignited within Charlie. Maybe there was a way forward, perhaps restoring vintage cars, a passion he neglected, could lead him out of his chaos. That no sooner had his vision blossomed than reality crashed in. A rival mechanic, envious of Charlie's newfound purpose, began to sow seeds of doubt. Rumors spread through the town like wildfire, aimed at tarnishing his reputation. Charlie felt the pressure building. The weight of his aspirations, the scrutinizing gazes of neighbors, whispers behind closed doors. Could he possibly find the strength to fight back against the odds stacked against him? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The town caught wind of Charlie's fight, rallying together as if he was one of their own. Their support felt like a warm embrace against the chill of impending failure. Yet beneath the surface, Charlie grappled with haunting memories of past failures, both his and the town's. The stakes climbed higher, leaving his heart racing. Would he find the courage to embrace the American dream wrapped up in grease-stained hopes? As anticipation built, Charlie stood on the precipice of change, unsure if the town's unwavering support would be enough to carry him through. With each breath, the weight of untold stories and dreams, tucked away like old tools gathering dust, hovered in the air, igniting a fire within him. Would this be his moment to rise, or would he be entrapped in the cycle of his past? Charlie left the diner feeling a mix of hope and anxiety. The rain had subsided, leaving only droplets clinging to the pavement, reflecting the dim streetlights like scattered stars. He could hear the distant rumble of thunder, but it felt distant now, a reminder of the storm he was ready to face, both within himself and from the townsfolk. Once home, Charlie took a deep breath before stepping inside. The familiar scent of his wife's cooking wafted through the air. It was a small comfort, but it grounded him. He glanced around the living room, filled with worn toys and family photos, a montage of love and laughter that anchored him to what truly mattered. "Dad, you're back," said little Sammy, his son, running toward him with a bright smile. Charlie knelt down and embraced him tightly. "Hey buddy, did you have a good day at school?" "Yeah. We learned about planets," Sammy exclaimed, his eyes lighting up. "Did you know Jupiter is really big? Like, huge?" Charlie chuckled, feeling the weight of the day lift slightly. "I did know that, Sammy, but I bet you could teach me a thing or two about it." Just then, Lily, Charlie's wife, joined them from the kitchen. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, flour dusting her cheeks. She looked at him with tired eyes that sparkled with warmth. "How was your day?" she asked, But even as she spoke, Charlie could see the worry etched on her face. He hesitated, thoughts of the loan documents swirling in his mind. It was tough, but I think I might have found a way to make things better. Her brows furrowed, and he immediately knew he had to tell her the truth. There was this waitress at the diner, Mia. She told me not to sign that loan. Could trap us. Charlie, we need that money to pay the bills. How can we? Lily's voice dropped, and he could feel her frustration. I just want to be okay. We can't fail again. I know, he replied softly, but what if there's another way? I've thought about restoring cars again. It might bring in some cash, maybe even a chance to fix things. For us, for Sammy. Lily crossed her arms, searching his face. You think people will even pay for that? It's been years since you've worked on cars, Charlie. He couldn't deny the truth of her words. But the support from the diner had sparked a determination inside him, a flicker of hope he hadn't felt in ages. I have to try. I can't keep living like this, constantly fearing the next bill, the next crisis. And if Mia believes in me, okay. But you know it won't be easy. Nothing worth it ever is, he added firmly, looking into her eyes. As hard as the road ahead seemed, a shared smile began to bloom in the space between them, a fragile but vital thread of understanding. The next day, armed with determination, Charlie rummaged through the cluttered garage, uncovering rusted tools and neglected projects. The familiar scent of oil mixed with the fresh air drifting through the open door, and for the first time in a long while, he felt alive. But as he worked, doubts crept in. What if he wasn't good enough? What if the townsfolk really turned against him, fueled by the rumors spreading like weeds? That afternoon, a loud knock at the door shook him from his thoughts. Heart racing, he opened it to find Hank, the very mechanic spreading rumors, standing there with a smirk. Heard you're thinking of fixing up cars again. Good luck with that. Charlie's throat tightened. As Hank walked away, whispering to a cluster of onlookers, doubt clawed at him like cold fingers. Was it too late to change his fate? The pressure of those judgmental eyes felt heavier than ever. With everything hanging in the balance, would Charlie be able to build a future? Or was this the beginning of his unraveling? The storm was brewing, and Charlie stood at its eye, ready to face whatever came next. Charlie shook his head, trying to clear his mind of Hank's words as he turned back to the garage. The dim light barely penetrated the clutter of old car parts and dust-covered memories. He needed a plan, a vision that could drown out the swirling doubts. He grabbed a wrench, feeling its weight in his palm. This wasn't just a tool. It was a piece of his past, a connection to the man he used to be. Each turn of the wrench was like unraveling a knot of anxiety. He spent countless weekends fixing up old cars, pouring himself into each project like it was a puzzle waiting to be solved. And now, he had to rediscover that passion and remind himself what he was capable of. Dad, can I help? Sammy's bright voice cut through his thoughts. The little boy bounced on his feet, eyes wide with excitement. Charlie smiled, a flicker of joy igniting in his chest. Sure, buddy. How about you help me clean up some of this mess? Together, they began sorting through boxes of forgotten treasures and trash. They laughed as they stumbled upon a toy car from Sammy's toddler years, its wheels still turning but covered in a layer of grime. Look, Dad, it's just like my new toy. Sammy beamed, holding it up for inspection. Exactly. Just needs some love, Charlie said, thinking how much he needed that love from both his family and the work he was about to undertake. As the day turned into evening, with sunlight slipping behind the horizon, a sense of purpose settled around Charlie. He wasn't just going to restore cars, he was going to rebuild himself. The thought filled him with warmth, and he glanced at his son, a tiny partner in his revival journey. Later that night, after dinner, Charlie shared his plans with Lily. I cleared out the garage today and found some old projects. I think I can start small, maybe fix a few things up and see if anyone is interested. Take a few orders. Lily raised an eyebrow, still cautious. And what about the bills now? How about I finish the first car and we'll see how it goes? He suggested. I really feel good about this. She paused, contemplating. All right, but let us not get our hopes too high. Just make sure we're thinking practically. "I will, I promise," he assured her as he squeezed her hand. The solidarity, the connection they shared fueled his resolve. But doubt never strayed far from him, especially when his mind drifted back to Hank's smirk. The next day, Charlie headed to the local parts store to gather supplies. The street felt different, a mix of anticipation and unspoken judgment hanging in the air. He could see familiar faces in town as he parked outside the shop, but they all seemed to look away. Maybe they were still whispering about his past failures. A knot tied itself around Charlie's stomach, but he refused to let it hold him back. Inside, between the aisles filled with tools and spare parts, there was Mia, sorting through inventory. She looked up and gave him a warm smile, one that made him feel seen, important even. "Hey Charlie, I'm glad to see you back here." She leaned against the wall, her presence a grounding force against the chaos in his head. "Thanks, Mia. Just trying to get back on my feet," he replied, his expression investing in the hope they both held. "Sometimes you have to fall before you can rise. Keep at it," she encouraged, her voice filled with reassurance. As he packed his items, her words rang in his mind. Could he really rise to the occasion? That night, as he tinkered in the garage, something inside him began to shift. Yet in the quiet of his thoughts, the question lingered. What if the storm brewing outside was nothing compared to the storm of doubt inside him? The next morning, as the light crept through the garage windows, Charlie stood over his latest project, a battered old pickup. Could he transform it, not just physically but also in the way it represented him? He placed his hands on the cold metal and felt a surge of determination wash over him. But the real test was yet to come. Before he could even consider his first project a success, would he face the town with pride or shame? The weight of expectation rested heavy on his heart. And as he tightened the final bolt, the sound of laughter pulled him from his thoughts. Sammy was playing outside, oblivious to the worries of the adult world. Charlie stepped outside to join him, soaking in the innocence and joy radiating from his son. They chased each other in the fading sunlight, and for a moment, the fears evaporated. But would that laughter sustain him against the waves of doubt and judgment that were sure to follow? As Charlie turned to head back to his project, one thing became painfully clear. The real storm was just beginning, and he had to decide whether to embrace the challenge or let it wash him away. Charlie stood at the edge of the driveway, heart racing as he watched Sammy's laughter dance through the fading light. It was as if his son's joy created a protective bubble around them, shielding him from the weight of the world outside their small yard. But that bubble felt fragile, like the last few pieces of a puzzle he was still trying to figure out. "Dad, come chase me," Sammy shouted, pulling him from his thoughts. Without thinking, Charlie took off after him, laughter spilling from his lips as they wove through the tall grass. For that brief moment, he could drown out his fears and doubts. But once they returned indoors, reality crashed down once more. The unfinished project in the garage loomed over Charlie. He could feel it calling to him, a reminder that while he had won a fleeting battle against despair, the war wasn't over. That evening, he pulled out a notebook and started sketching ideas for the pickup. Each line felt like a step deeper into his own revival. He envisioned the paint job, the shine of the chrome, and the sound of the engine humming like a new heartbeat. Lily entered the room, her eyes narrowing at the notebook spread open before him. "You really think you can do this?" she asked, arms crossed. He glanced up, determination boiling in his gut. "I have to try, Lily. I need this. We need this." Her expression softened, and she nodded slowly, perhaps recognizing the hunger for change that was buried deep inside him. "Just promise me you won't lose sight of reality. Okay? We have to be careful about money." "I know," he said, trying to keep the frustration from creeping into his voice. "But trust me, I'll make this work. I have to." Days turned into a week. Each morning, Charlie would immerse himself in the garage, the dark corners slowly transforming into a workspace filled with tools and hope. Sammy became his shadow, eager to help wherever he could. They bonded over grease-stained hands and endless questions. "Dad, do you think it will really run again?" Sammy asked one afternoon, his large eyes wide with curiosity. "Absolutely, buddy," Charlie answered, kneeling to meet his son's gaze. It just needs someone to believe in it and work hard. With every bolt tightened and every spark plug replaced, Charlie felt a bit of his old self returning. Yet, the town's judgment still nipped at him subtly. He could feel eyes watching, whispers bubbling behind him, more potent than any laid-back summer breeze. Then came the day he finally rolled the pickup out of the garage. Sunlight glinted off the freshly polished surface, revealing a deep blue that reminded him of late summer evenings. Sammy's squeal of delight was music to his ears. "Look, Dad, it's beautiful. Can we drive it?" Sammy bounced on his toes, excitement radiating. For a moment, Charlie marveled at the transformation. He hadn't just restored a truck. He had crafted a piece of his heart, a symbol that perhaps he too could reclaim joy. But that joy was tinged with apprehension. It was just a step. The true challenge lay ahead, taking that vehicle into town. Would he be met with admiration or judgment? A thrill of anxiety rolled in, raising goosebumps across his arms. He turned towards Lily, who was leaning on the garage door frame, arms crossed. There was something unreadable in her expression. "Do you want to take it for a spin?" he asked, his voice steadier than he felt. "I think we should," she replied, her tone encouraging. But Charlie couldn't shake the feeling that something was brewing beneath the surface. Something that could change everything. As he slid into the driver's seat, he felt the thrill of the unknown wrapping around him. Was this the moment everything would shift? The engine roared to life, with Sammy's laughter ringing in the air. Charlie's foot pressed down on the gas, shifting them forward into the uncertain embrace of their small town. But just before they hit the main road, a figure stepped onto the street, arms waving frantically. Charlie squinted, recognizing Hank's silhouette. What was he doing there? Dread weighed heavily in his chest, and the moment felt like a cliff edge. Would he drift towards confrontation or let fear pull him back? He had to decide now. Would he let the past dictate the future once more, or would he finally claim his place in the world? Charlie's heart hammered in his chest as he caught Hank's frantic gestures. Time seemed to slow down. The air that filled the truck felt thick with uncertainty. "Dad, who is that?" Sammy asked, peering out the window, his little voice filled with innocent confusion. "It's just Hank," Charlie murmured, although he wished it was just that simple. Hank was one of those old friends who had turned acquaintances, the kind of guy who knew too much about Charlie's past regrets yet too little about his hopes for the future. Taking a deep breath, he swung the door open, stepping out, his feet crunching on the gravel. "Hank, what is going on?" he called out, trying to put a brave face on. His enthusiasm from earlier felt like a distant memory. Hank rushed over, his face flushed beneath the summer sun. "Charlie, I saw you out here. I wanted to catch you before you left." His words tumbled out, frantic and uneven. Charlie couldn't shake the feeling that whatever Hank had to say could poke a hole in the fragile bubble he created with Sammy. "What is it? Is there something wrong?" His eyes darted back to the truck, to Sammy peering out. Innocent and unguarded, Hank hesitated, taking a steadying breath. "It's about the town. There's gossip. And a lot of it is about you. People are talking about what you're doing. They don't want you to take that truck out." Something tightened in Charlie's gut. "What do you mean?" he asked, every word laced with disbelief. "There are whispers that you're only doing this to cover up the past." "To prove something," Hank said, scratching the back of his neck. "I'm worried if you drive that thing around town today, it's gonna open up old wounds. You might not be ready for it, man." Charlie's mind raced. It was as if Hank had stripped the joy away in an instant, replacing it with a heavy cloak of reality. His gaze drifted back to Sammy. The boy still beamed with pride as he sat in the pickup, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing outside. "I can't just hide away because the town has an opinion," Charlie replied, his voice firm but trembling. "That truck means something to me, Hank." "I know it does," Hank said, his eyes softening. "I just wanted you to know what people are saying so you can be ready for it." Charlie felt the warmth of the sun fading as the weight of those words sank in. Memories flooded back. The looks, the whispers, the laughter that had turned into scorn. He had clawed his way back from that darkness, and now it felt like it could swallow him whole again. Sammy hopped out of the truck, his small hands gripping a toy wrench. "Dad, are we going to drive? Please." His excitement was like a life buoy in turbulent waters. Charlie looked down at his son, seeing the eager sparkle in his eyes. "We can do this," he thought, trying to ignite that spark in himself. Charlie turned towards Hank. "I appreciate you telling me, but I have to do this for me and for Sammy. I need to show him that letting fear dictate our lives isn't an option." His determination began to crystallize, pushing back against the shadows of doubt. Hank nodded slowly, although his brows furrowed with concern. "Just be careful, Charlie. You know how the past can come back to haunt you." "I'm ready to face it," he declared, the words cutting through the fog of anxiety. Turning back to Sammy, he knelt down to his level. "Are you ready to take a ride, buddy?" "Yeah." Sammy cheered, his enthusiasm infectious. Charlie climbed back into the driver's seat. The engine felt like a roaring heart beneath him, waiting for life. As they pulled away, the faintest thread of excitement twisted with fear in his stomach. But as they approached the main road, doubts darted through his mind like swarming bees. What if Hank was right? What if the town's reaction cut deeper than he anticipated? He gripped the steering wheel, focusing on the road ahead, visualizing the future and the freedom of finally moving forward. But just as they reached the intersection, a group of older men gathered on the sidewalk, their faces a mixture of disbelief and judgment. Charlie's breath hitched. Would they welcome him, or would this be the moment the past clawed its way back into the present? With a deep, shaky breath, he felt the weight of the decision ahead of him. Would today be the day he reclaimed his life, or would the echoes of his mistakes drown him out? His heart raced, the moment palpably tense as he inched closer to the crossroads of judgment. What would he face next? Would he finally break free or be pulled back into the shadows of his past? Charlie sat tensely behind the wheel, sweat pooling at the back of his neck. He took another deep breath, trying to quell the storm inside him as he faced the group of men on the sidewalk. Their surprised expressions told him everything. He was bait, drawing attention he didn't want. He could sense Sammy's playful chatter behind him, blissfully unaware of the darkness creeping into Charlie's thoughts. The truck rolled to a slow stop, and the gravel crunched beneath the tires, the sound strangely amplified in the tense silence that enveloped them. Charlie felt the weight of the townsfolk's eyes on him, piercing right through the thin armor of confidence he'd donned that morning. The glares weren't just curious. They were loaded with judgment, tinged with old resentments. "Dad, look," Sammy squealed, pointing to something outside, breaking through Charlie's focus on the anxiety bubbling in his chest. Charlie glanced in the rearview mirror to see his son's eyes sparkling with a sense of wonder, ignorant of the tumult unfolding around them. "Yep, sounds fun," Charlie muttered, but his voice felt off, hollow. He didn't want Sammy to see him waver in front of those men. This wasn't just a drive. It was a moment that could either reaffirm their journey together or throw them straight into the abyss of slander and shame. One of the older men stepped forward, squinting against the bright sun. "Charlie, is that you in that old thing?" His voice broke the uneasy quiet. It was a familiar voice, one that stirred forgotten memories of laughter and camaraderie, but humor had turned bitter since Charlie's fall from grace. "Yeah, it's me," Charlie replied, trying to keep his tone steady. He could feel the memories prickling at the edges of his resolve. "Thought you were done with all this." The man crossed his arms, his skepticism palpable. Others joined in, casting glances like little barbs. "I'm just taking my son for a ride." "Thought you might like to see." Charlie's voice trailed off, almost pleading for validation. Anything to refute their silent accusations. "Taking your son for a ride? Huh?" The comment was laced with sarcasm. Didn't he think you'd have the guts to show up again after all these years? The crowd behind him muttered amongst themselves, the tension rising as whispers danced in the air. Charlie's heart raced. Panic rose like bile in his throat. Their words were like arrows, aiming straight for the cracks in his armor. But deep down, he felt a flicker of resolve igniting within him. He straightened his spine, determined not to let them unravel everything he fought for. "Look," he said, his voice firm, taking control over the mocking atmosphere. I'll drive this truck for as long as I want. It's my past, and I'm not running from it anymore. He glanced back at Sammy, the innocent little boy, still waving enthusiastically. That visual was all he needed. As if sensing the shift, Hank took a step toward the crowd, his furrowed brows betraying his worry for Charlie. Let him be. He has shown he has changed, Hank proclaimed, voicing what Charlie had wished he could articulate: strong, steady, a shield against the past. Charlie felt a small rush of gratitude toward Hank, but the men only shifted, unconvinced. He could sense Sammy's confusion, so Charlie forced a smile, a real one. The same one he wore when entertaining his son with stories after long days at work. All right, we're leaving now, Charlie said, his tone decisive. He turned back to the truck, ignoring the eyes that felt glued to him. He could feel the doubt creeping back, but he had to push through. For Sammy. For himself. He started the engine, its roar mingling with the whispers of the crowd. The world around him faded as adrenaline pumped through his veins. As he drove away from the sidewalk and the stairs, the doubts fused with determination. The task of reclaiming his life loomed larger than any old judgments. But just as he turned the corner, his phone buzzed on the dashboard. Charlie glanced at the screen. A message from Hank flashed. You sure about this, man? Charlie felt the pull of uncertainty again. Was he really ready to confront the past? Or would these whispers consume him whole once more? The path stretched out before him, turbulent, uncharted, and he wasn't sure where it led. Taking a deep breath, he readied himself. What awaited him in the town? Would he transform what could have been a setback into a confidence that burned away shadows? The roar of the engine faded into an almost comforting hum as Charlie navigated the familiar streets. Sammy, blissfully oblivious, continued to chatter about his excitement for the carnival happening later that day. Charlie smiled down at him, but inside, he wrestled with the weight of the judgment he'd just faced. There was a knot in his stomach, a reminder of how quickly the shadows of his past could surface in broad daylight. Can we get cotton candy, Dad? Sammy's bright eyes sparkled with innocent hope, a stark contrast to the tight frown etched on Charlie's face. Sure, buddy, he replied, the word falling from his lips like a soothing balm. Charlie liked that. Every pop of excitement from Sammy broke another chain of doubt shackling his heart. As they parked outside a local diner, the warm afternoon sun bathed the truck in light, beckoning them to step out. The diner had always been a sanctuary for both Charlie and Sammy. The waitresses like family, sharing laughter and stories over milkshakes and fries. But as he hesitated at the door, the memories came rushing back, faces that once smiled now twisted with untrusting glares. See, Mon, Dad. Sammy tugged at his sleeve. The urgency in his voice snapped Charlie back to the moment. He took a deep breath, squared his shoulders and pushed the door open. The bell jingled overhead, echoing in the quaint diner. The smell of fried food and sweet pastries mixed together, while the clattering of dishes provided a chaotic but familiar soundtrack. Charlie glanced around, and once again, the weight of stares lingered on him. There were whispers, soft but sharp enough to cut through the air. Is that him? One voice hissed to another, just loud enough for Charlie to catch. Been years since I've seen him around, came the reply, followed by a cynical snicker. Sammy plopped down in a booth, oblivious to the discomfort brewing in the corner. He picked up a menu and began spinning it, disappearing into the joys of the moment. Charlie's heart sank. The flicker of confidence he had ignited turned to embers. Hey, Charlie, a voice called from behind the counter. It was Beth, the cheerful waitress who always piled Sammy's plate high with pancakes. Long time no see. Hi, Beth, he managed to reply, forcing a smile. She was a beacon of light in the storm, and her warmth was like a lifeline. As she made her way over, her presence alleviated some of the tension. You look good. And who's this little guy? This is Sammy, my son, Charlie said, pride replacing the apprehension momentarily. Beth beamed as Sammy chirped, I want pancakes. Coming right up, she replied, her laughter brightening the room. But even her kindness couldn't drown out the murmurs. The older gentlemen from the street were seated across the diner, their eyes now fixed upon him like vultures. "Did you hear?" Yes, back one whispered, punctuated by a shake of his head. "Crazy, I senti it," another said. Charlie's stomach churned. Did they think he wouldn't recover? Did they want him to fail? The momentary relief from Beth's warmth was slipping through his fingers like sand. He swallowed hard, struggling to find his footing. The past loomed large, the fear rooted deeply in his veins. He leaned closer to Sammy, feeling the need to shield him from the world's judgment. "You know, Sammy, it's okay to be scared sometimes. It helps us know what we really want." Sammy looked up, eyes bright in their innocence. "I'm not scared, Dad. I just want candy." Charlie chuckled softly, realizing that in this moment, Sammy was right. Innocence was a precious gift, one that Charlie wanted to protect fiercely. As the plates landed on the table, the tension stuck to him like a second skin. He needed more than just pancakes to fill the emptiness creeping in. Glancing at the older men, hearts hardened by time and resentment, a surge of frustration welled up inside him. But as Sammy took a bite of his food, grit and determination softly flared. He would find a way, he had to. He was more than the shadows of his past. He was Charlie, a father, a man ready to reclaim his story. Suddenly, a shrill voice cut through his thoughts. "Charlie, looks like you've decided to come back and embarrass yourself again." The same man from before taunted, laughter brewing in the corner booth. Charlie's heart raced again. Would they ever let him be? As the wicked mirth echoed around him, he could feel the fire igniting within. As he turned to face the man, and the room fell silent, Charlie knew he stood on the precipice of something monumental, a point of no return where he would either retreat or reclaim the narrative once and for all. What would he choose? How far was he willing to go to protect his son, to show the world the man he'd become? As the air thickened with anticipation, everything seemed to hinge on his next words. Charlie locked eyes with the man across the diner, his heart pounding louder than he thought it could. The laughter around them faded into a dull roar in his ears, leaving only the intensity of this moment. He could feel Sammy's small hand brushing against his arm, a reminder of what was truly important. "What do you say?" Charlie's voice was steady, surprising even himself. In that instant, he realized he was no longer just a reflection of the man he had been. He was ready to become a shield for his son. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about setting a precedent. The man leaned back, a smug grin spreading across his face. "I said you're back to embarrass yourself," he repeated, loud enough to draw the attention of everyone in the diner. Conversations halted. Forks paused midway to the mouth, and eyes shifted to the unfolding drama. Embarrass? Or inspire? Charlie shot back, his voice rising above the murmur. For a brief moment he imagined it. Standing up, no longer a ghost in this town. "Simon, Charlie, you really think you can just waltz back in after all this time?" The man's condescension dripped from every word. "You think we'll just forget the past?" "I'm not asking you to forget," Charlie replied, digging deeper into his own resolve. "I'm asking for a chance. A chance to show my son what a real man does, what a father does." Sammy squirmed in the booth, his innocent eyes darting back and forth. "Dad, I want candy," he implored, caught between the weight of adult words and the simple joy of a child's desire. Charlie put a comforting hand on Sammy's shoulder, grounding himself. He could feel the stares, the judgments still lingering like ghosts. But now there was a flicker of something different, courage. He wouldn't be ashamed anymore. Beth approached with a plate of pancakes, sensing the tension thickening the air. "Hey, how about some whipped cream on those?" she said, trying to diffuse the moment. She paused, glancing nervously between Charlie and the man. Her heart was in the right place, but the world could be unkind. "Or how about you all take a good look at a father who's trying to be better?" Charlie said, his voice echoing through the diner like a battle cry. "Maybe I'm not perfect, but I'm here, and that has to count for something." A shift around the table sparked curiosity. A few glimmers of support flickered in the form of nods. The air was thick, charged with raw emotion. and Charlie felt a swell of camaraderie welling up. Others had struggled. Others had fought their demons. The man scoffed. You think people will clap for you? This town is tired of your excuses. We want to see results. Prove you've changed. Charlie realized the simmering truth in those words. A truth he could no longer ignore. You want results? He challenged back, turning his gaze to the rest of the diner. Then tell me, what does it look like when someone changes? What does it take to earn your trust? Silence cracked like morning light through the window. Charlie's heart raced as he stood there, an unyielding pillar for Sammy, who looked up at him with wide eyes. No more shadows, just a man standing in his truth. The elderly gentleman from the corner, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke up. It's about actions, Charlie. Show us you care. Show your boy what it means to stand tall. Resolved? Charlie nodded. Then I will. You'll see. He turned back to Sammy, a determination swelling in his chest. We'll have that cotton candy, buddy, and we're going to enjoy the carnival no matter what anyone says. As the murmurs in the diner shifted subtly, Charlie caught a glimpse of sympathy and understanding starting to rise. Maybe, just maybe, the tide was beginning to turn for him. But just as he began to feel the warmth of possibility blossom, the door swung open with a jingle, and an unexpected figure stepped inside, eyes scanning the room. Charlie's gut twisted. Who was it now? Could this person be yet another reminder of the past he was trying to escape? As the newcomer approached, Charlie felt a storm brewing, one that could change everything once again. Who were they, and what would they bring with them to this already shaky moment? Charlie felt a chill crawl up his spine as the figure stepped into the diner. The newcomer was a woman, and for a split second he thought he recognized her. Her presence sent a ripple through the room. Conversations died down again, and people turned, their interest piqued. She moved with a quiet confidence, her eyes scanning the crowd before finally landing on Charlie. Recognition flickered in her gaze, and he wanted to look away, to shield Sammy from what had been. But it was too late. The awareness was there, like an electric current buzzing in the air. Charlie, she said, her voice warm yet firm. It's been a long time. Rachel. The name came out as a whisper, hefty with memories. They hadn't spoken in years, not since everything fell apart. He had half hoped she wouldn't come back, and half dreaded seeing her here. Her return felt like a doorway flung open to a past he was trying to shut. What are you doing here? He managed, trying to sound more composed than he felt. She took a step closer, her expression softening as she glanced down at Sammy. I heard you were back. I had to see for myself. The man who had been taunting Charlie earlier stood and cleared his throat. What's this? An old flame coming to stir the pot? His tone dripped with sarcasm, a clear intention to escalate the moment into a bigger spectacle. Leave him alone, Rachel shot back, tilting her chin defiantly. Charlie's trying to do better. He couldn't believe she stood up for him. This moment was surreal, wrestling between past hurts and a flicker of support. But doubt gnawed at the edges of his hope. What could she want? You really think showing up here with a fresh face will win anyone over? The man sneered. You can't just erase what you've done. Rachel turned her full attention back to Charlie, ignoring the outburst. I know you've made mistakes, but we all have. I believe you can change. And so should they. The sincerity in her voice cut through the electric tension, almost palpable in the air. There was something in her eyes that told him she still believed in him, in a way he hadn't felt in a long time. Sammy tugged at Charlie's sleeve. Dad? Who is she? It caught him off guard, the innocence in his son's voice grounding him. How could he explain to Sammy a past that he was desperately trying to escape? Rachel knelt down to Sammy's level. I knew your dad a long time ago. He used to be... Well, he was really great back then. And he can be great again. She smiled softly, and there was a tenderness in her gaze that pushed a crack into Charlie's wall of defenses. The man stepped forward, trying to assert himself, but the surrounding diners now buzzed with murmurs of disbelief and curiosity. People leaned in, eyes shifting back and forth like the pendulum of a clock ticking down to a revelation. Prove you've changed, he grunted. A last stand against the tide that was slowly shifting. Charlie swallowed hard. Could he? The stakes felt impossibly high. Rachel, why are you really here? Charlie asked, desperation slipping into his voice. What do you want from me? I want you to know you're not alone in this, she replied, the warmth of her sincerity seeping into his chest. And I have something to share with you, something that could change everything. Everyone leaned in just a bit closer. The weight of her words hung in the air like a promise, or perhaps a threat. Charlie's heart raced again, hope mingled with fear. What could she possibly say that could turn the tide for him? Would it break him further, or offer a chance at redemption? Whatever it is, he said, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and anticipation. I'm ready to listen. And as she opened her mouth to speak, Charlie felt the ground beneath him shift once more, bracing for whatever revelation would come next. Would the truth free him or pull him deeper into the shadows? Rachel took a deep breath, her eyes steady on Charlie's. When you left town, things fell apart not just for you, but for a lot of us. I'm not sure you even know, she hesitated, glancing at the older men, who were visibly intrigued and somewhat subdued. But I came back because we're all tired of living in the past. We want to move forward. Charlie's heart raced as he felt the weight of her words. The tension in the room felt different now. It was electric, charged with possibility. What do you mean? Charlie pressed, the desperation in his voice barely concealed. How can I be part of that? Rachel leaned in closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. I've been talking to a few people. You remember the community center? We're planning to revive it. We want local voices, people who know the heart of our town. We want you to help us. We feel like you could be a symbol, a testament to what it means to rise again. Charlie blinked, processing her words. Could it be true? A chance to reshape his role in the community, to contribute positively instead of being branded as the past's villain? But the doubt crept in once more. What if they don't believe in me? What if I fail again? His voice shook as old fears clawed back, but Rachel placed a steadying hand on his shoulder. Change isn't easy, Charlie. But it's worth it. It's what you've shown Sammy today, standing up. That's what this town needs, reckoning with our histories while moving forward. You can guide others. You can be that father who teaches about strength, resilience, and hope. He felt a swell of emotion grip his heart. Was it really possible? This change? Could he really reclaim the community he once stood in? He glared at the older men, still watching, the echoes of laughter replaced by uncertainty. And suddenly, he realized something essential. He had already stepped through the door of change. It was no longer about what they thought of him. It was about owning his journey and forging ahead, with or without their approving nods. Okay, he said simply but firmly. I'll do it. I'll help with the community center. A wave of relief washed over Rachel, her smile widening. Great. We'll plan a meeting next week. Just stay true to yourself, okay? As she walked away, ready to gather the others, Charlie felt a shift around him, the air solidified, full of promise. It was almost as if the townsfolk were holding their breaths, waiting to see if he would take this leap of faith. That he turned back toward Sammy, who was still engrossed in his pancakes, blissfully unaware of the gravity of the moment that had just unfolded. Charlie knelt beside him, scooping the boy up moments later, determination swelling within. Did you hear that, buddy? Charlie's excitement was palpable. We can help everyone. We're gonna make things better for this town. Sammy clapped, thrilled, completely on board with whatever uncharted adventure awaited them. Can we put up slides at the community center? He asked, eyes wide with excitement. Whatever you want, buddy. We can make it fun. Charlie felt enormous warmth envelop him, something he hadn't felt in years. The burden on his shoulders grew lighter. Perhaps it wasn't a fight against judgment, but a call to stand for something good and greater. The man who had tormented him initially mirrored confusion and disbelief, but Charlie no longer cared. He stood with purpose. Let us enjoy this day and then build new tomorrows, he said, turning to the crowd. I'm back, but not just to bask in the past. I'm here to cultivate a better future. As his voice rang through the diner, Charlie felt the tide swell. He looked around and met the sympathetic eyes of many who had witnessed his struggle. Their murmurs began to shift from gossip to curiosity. Charlie S. Wright, Beth, the waitress, called from behind the counter, her voice bright. We got to lift each other up. Change starts here. Together, they could build something incredible. The air buzzed with possibilities, and Charlie reveled in the moment, the beginning of a new chapter. Not just for him, but for the entire community. For the first time, Charlie felt entirely free of the past. The journey to redemption wasn't going to be simple, but it was finally clear. With Sammy's laughter echoing in the background, Charlie found himself at peace, ready for the next horizon, ready for anything. The diner filled with applause and laughter, and Charlie felt alive. Now, there's something important you need to do. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for these transformations. Comment down below your reactions and feelings about this amazing ending. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand how vital supporting the channel is through these actions.